What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 400. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, hello. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. We have something really special planned for episode 400.
Yeah, we just discussed this a minute ago. We're both like, oh, it's 400. What should we do? I don't know. I always have to, I'm not good at that kind of stuff. I'm just like, hey, we got a show to do. We got a level up episode. I'm focusing on that. And I mean, it is awesome. Just looking back or whatever, I never would have assumed that we'd get to 400 episodes of this show.
It just still surprises me.
But I'm glad. I mean, it's just become such a big part of my life and stuff that I don't know. These milestones are cool, but I'm kind of just more about doing a good show still, which was kind of how we started off in the first place. But I don't know, maybe, if somebody has any great idea for something, we could do it. But I guess we're a little late since we're already recording.
What are you guys doing for episode 400? We were thinking about doing the show.
Yeah, we were probably going to do the show this week, and beyond that, who knows? But yeah, this is it. This is number 400. We've got a level up episode planned out for you for this week. Where we're going to be talking about the signs that you may be doing it wrong. That's right. There's some little habits and some little things that you might be doing that might hint to a bigger problem. We're going to talk about those this week on the show. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about our sponsor, channelfireball.com. To celebrate our summer sale, we're giving away Summer Sale Booster Crate to 3 lucky winners. Each crate contains a booster box, 3 Masters Edition booster packs, and assorted other goodies. For our international fans, since we can't ship, Magic sealed product to you, we're going to instead award $100 in store credit to your Channel Fireball account, and all U.S. residents may also choose this prize option if they'd like. The Channel Fireball Summer Sale runs August 1st through 7th, and we're selling a lot of items at huge discounts, many of which are very limited in quality. Check out our Summer Sale page at channelfireball.com/giveaway for that giveaway. And,
am I eligible to win the boxes?
I think you're not. I'm going to say no on behalf of channelfireball.com, though, to be honest, I don't know. Sure, yeah, you win. It would be a little awkward if you won, though, I won't lie. So yeah, make sure you check that out. And of course, while you're over at Channel Fireball, make sure you take in some of the awesome free content from some of the best content creators and players in the world. The show is also brought to you by you via the Patreon. That's right. If you want to support the show directly, it's a really cool setup where you get to give back to the creators that help make your life a little happier, a little better, a little brighter. Maybe you get a little better at Magic, win some more booster packs at the local store, something like that. And, you can give back to them. And we're on there. A lot of your favorite podcasts and things like that are on Patreon. And we do encourage you to check them out. Patreon.com/limited resources. I've got a giveaway here. Speaking of Patreon. So there's a couple of things that you get if you're on Patreon. You get the bonuses, that it'll say on the level that you sign up for. But you also get to submit questions for the question of the week. And on top of that, you get submitted for our giveaways. And this one is, all the Crack-A-Packs that we do on the show, we give away the rares. And this one, I think I got a little behind on it because I got a pile of rares here to give away. All types of cool stuff in here. Oh, wow, there's even a Marshall in here for some reason. I actually don't know why that's in there. But anyway, big pile of them. And we're going to be doing a few more giveaways in the coming weeks as well. So make sure you get signed up on the Patreon if you want to be eligible for those. But this one is spoken for, as this particular giveaway goes to Rick Wood from San Bernardino, California. Rick, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. And I will be sending this pile of rares in a limited resources deck box with a package of sleeves as well to you in the near future. Thank you, Rick. Also, I mentioned it a second ago, question of the week. Let's get into it. This one comes from Daniel Ward, who says, what would you say is a fair number of games to play before you can determine whether or not your deck is good? I've heard you use phrases like confirmation bias as well as suggesting to replay your saved decks against others. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts to avoid the former and or advice to better guide the latter. Thanks. So this is an interesting question, right, Luis? Because in limited, almost all scenarios, we are dealing with a very limited sample size where we don't really ever get, thousands and thousands of reps with a, given type of deck.
Yeah, the answer is you never actually get enough games to like prove your deck is good based on record.
Definitively or whatever, yeah.
But you can look at a deck and say whether it's good or not, and you don't really the record is fact kind of deceptive. You can 3-0 with a bad deck and you can 0-2 with a good deck. Those are both definitely possible and have happened many times. So the best way to do that is before you're confident in figuring that out, first of all, just play your games and don't worry about how good your deck is, because it actually doesn't matter. Like at the end of a draft, when you're like, is my deck, what is my deck on a scale of 1 to 10? The answer is some number. The real answer is it doesn't really matter. Like you're going to play the deck. This is the deck you drafted. If you think you drafted it well, you can go over to decision points in the draft. But whether your deck's a 7 or a 9 doesn't matter. And whether your deck is like a 3 or a 6 doesn't matter that much. It's good to know. You want to get a sense of whether your draft went well or poorly. And look, I mean, we were just at the Pro Tour last week. What is the first thing everyone does after they've like registered and sleeved their deck?
Right. They run around and ask everybody else, what do you think?
Exactly. So I think that it is a very natural instinct and it's fine to do it. But, if someone comes up and hands you a deck, you're like, how good is this? And you look through and you're like, oh, it looks like an 8 out of 10. It shouldn't change how you play, whether you said 8 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. Yeah,
that's right. So, and one thing that pops up just as a clean example of this, right, is it's relative, right? Like we've all seen,
exactly.
Like imagine, one way to think about this is, let's just say you opened up an entire draft's worth, a whole 8-person draft pod's worth of packs, like as if it were like a seal deck. So you've opened up 24 packs, right? And, you looked at all the rares and you looked at the density of the good uncommons versus the bad ones and that kind of stuff. And you started kind of grading these pools, right? If you opened up 100 or 1,000 of these, you would see that there's a reasonable amount of change between them. And if you happen to be at a table that opens up one that's on the lower end of that spectrum, then what's going to end up happening is everybody's deck is going to be relatively worse. So, and it is relative, especially if you're playing in pod where, your deck only has to be better than the, second best player's deck or whatever in theory. And that means that if your deck is a 3, but theirs is a 2, then you're totally fine. And it also means though that, you might need yours to be an 8 or a 9 in a pool that was really, really strong. So, it is very relative to what else is going on. And like Louise said, it's not entirely useful. The thing that it really leans on, and the skill set that we do try to push on here in a holistic way, although it's a difficult one because it's the sum of many parts, is using your intuition and experience to understand that, right? Like when you test for the Pro Tour, Louise, I mean, you guys do have to start sorting out which types of decks and which archetypes and stuff, are starting to stand out to you as ones that might be strong performers. But you also know to avoid the pitfalls of, I did get pretty lucky here, or it just happened to work out, or my draws were really, really strong. So this deck has potential, but I'm not going to, say this is the archetype to go for. You're constantly kind of applying a filter to the things that you're saying, like to your testing team.
You are. And you do want to, I think, have, an accurate assessment of what's going on. But for the most part, I think, you're not really going to get enough reps, so you just have to kind of see what decks end up looking like when you've watched a lot of them.
Right. And you do develop a sense for it. And the thing is that you can also just be wrong. So, that's why you got to be really careful with that kind of thing. Thanks, Daniel, for the question. Excuse me. He choked me up there. All right, let's crack a pack. A little Hour of Devastation action here. Let's see what we got. All right, first card out of the pack. Mummy Paramount.
I actually like this 2-drop quite a bit. This is the 1 and a white 2/2 zombie that gets +1/+1 till on a turn whenever you play a zombie.
Yeah.
Or whenever a zombie enters the battlefield under your control. It does work with random zombie tokens. Important card in the black-white zombie deck. It's playable in green-white if you need enough 2-drops or red-white. But I'm not excited about first picking this, but I actually have first picked this card.
Oh, no. Out of the second pack, I hope?
Yes, more often out of the second pack. I don't think I've ever first picked out of pack 1.
Yeah. Frontline Devastator. This is the 3 and a red 3/3 with a flick 2, and you can fire breathe it. You can give it +1/+0 for 1 and a red.
Solid card.
Card's
Nothing
been
I'm
fine.
excited about, but definitely a solid playable.
This one's one that has really gone up, I think, for both of us. Unquenchable Thirst.
Yes. Some people think it's the best common.
Ooh, that's way up. So that's the 1 in a blue aura, chance a creature, and the creature doesn't untap it. If you control a desert or have one in your yard, it will actually tap the creature as well. Blue removal. I mean, we wondered when we did the set review, you and I like openly questioned, well, how easy is it to get deserts? How convenient is it? How much of a hit on your mana or whatever are you taking by taking deserts earlier or prioritizing them at some point in the draft to make Unquenchable Thirst just that much better? And, you know, you can still play it without a desert, but, you know, it becomes that's just a super strong spell. I mean, that normally costs 1 blue, right?
Yeah, that's claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. You know, this is way cheaper and easier to cast. And it turns out, you know, in retrospect, getting the deserts was easy. And they usually just make your deck better. Like, it's not like you're not taking a hit. You actually just want them anyway. So, you know, the combination of those things, I think, does push Unquenchable Thirst, you know, very high on the list.
Yeah, I think that Unquenchable Thirst is quite good. It's my pick right now.
All right. What about Lethal Sting? This one went down a little for us, huh?
It did. Lethal Sting, I think it's still a playable, but there are decks where it doesn't do all that well, and overall I haven't been impressed with it. You also don't really want multiples all that often.
Right. I found that too. I really thought that the counter would be kind of a throwaway, but it's not. Man, it still says destroy target creature on it for 3 mana, and that's like powerful, but yeah, it does. The cost is more than I recognized at the beginning. Wow, this pack's good. Ambuscade.
Ambuscade also really good. That's another card in contention for best common slot, along with Open Fire, I think, that rounds things out. Mm-hmm. So I would lean right now towards taking Ambuscade. I think green's quite a bit better than blue, but I wouldn't blame you if you took Unquenchable Thirst.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm leaning on Ambuscade here. Grizzly Survivor. This is the 2 in a black 2/3. Whenever you cycle or discard, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I really hated this card at the beginning, but I've like Bensek has begrudgingly pulled me into the, okay, fine, you can put it in your deck sometimes camp.
Yeah, I gave it a low rating, and I think I stand by that. I haven't really been impressed by it.
Yeah, I still think it's bad, but I moved it into like, if I put it in my deck, I'm not like embarrassed camp. God Pharaoh's Faithful. This is the white 0/4 human wizard, and whenever you cast a blue, black, or red spell, you gain a life. I actually haven't had a chance to play this card yet. I guess maybe I just haven't found the right deck for it. It feels a little weird because it's in white and doesn't seem to go well with the other, you know, like, what are you taking, like, Ketra's Avenger and a God Pharaoh's Faithful in the same deck? Well, that doesn't seem like
the only times I've seen people play this are in, like, 3+ color control decks, like the deck Sam Black 3-0'd with, I think, at the Pro Tour, where he had 2 Sunset Pyramids and actual Wrath of God.
Right, yeah.
I saw Owen play it in an Esper control deck. So it's less about the ability and more just about you want an 0/4 to block their 3/3s.
Okay, yeah. It just, again, the fact that it's white, it doesn't show up as often as you'd think. Gilded Ceradon, that's the 4 in a red 4/4, and if you've, it's got the whole desert thing going on, and if you've got that met, when it attacks, a creature can't block.
Yeah, I don't think this card is terrible, but I would never take it early. It's just a 5-drop and a replaceable one at that.
Yeah, I think it's fine though. I think it's like it's performed better for me than I thought it would.
It reminds me of Wayward Giant in
yeah, I remember that guy
in Kaladesh, where it started out looking mediocre, but it was actually just fine.
Yeah. Feral Prowler. I want to know where you're at on this one. This is the 1 in a green 1/3 cat, and when it dies, you draw a card.
I like it in green ramp decks. I dislike it in green aggro decks, and I don't tend to take it all that high. Like,
okay,
it is certainly worse than like Desert of the Indomitable, the green desert.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Feral Prowler's been, in the slower decks, it really is an annoying speed bump for the opponent. And you can often just chump block, save some life, and draw a card. It's even fine at that. All right, up to the uncommons. We've got some decent stuff here. Steward of Solidarity. That's the 1 in a white 2/2. And you can tap it and exert it to make a 1/1 warrior.
This card looked very good to us. Mm-hmm. Also is very good.
It is very good, yes.
I'm on board of taking Steward of Solidarity here.
You like it better than Ambuscade here?
I do. I think it's just such a powerful 2-drop that also has pretty good late game potential. And I think that the white... First of all, the white aggressive decks are still playable. And this is just fine in a control deck too.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, card's really good.
This is like an Ambuscade that kills their 5/5 when it attacks, essentially. Because you keep chumping.
Wow, kills their 5/500 attacks. I like that.
Every other turn.
This is not ridiculous, a good comparison. But yeah. How about Supreme Will? The 2 and a blue instant. You can counter spell unless the controller pays 3, or you can look at the top 4 cards and then take one of them and put the rest on the bottom.
I like Supreme Will. I'll play it in all my blue decks, and I'll even take it reasonably high when I'm in Spells Matter. But I would not start with it over Steward or Ambuscade or even Unquenchable Thirst.
Yeah, I agree. Inferno Jet. This has been a nice finisher. 500 red sorcery. It does 6 damage to a player, and you can cycle it away for 2 mana.
I like this card in aggressive decks a lot. It has performed well. Still worse than Steward.
I agree. It just strikes fear. It's just like, how many times have you played to a reasonable board state and then just gone, well, I'm dead to Inferno Jet, and if they have it, you just can't do anything. And again, if they start missing land drops or just really get behind, they can just cycle it. It's very good. I actually have a foil common here. It's a Kenra Scrapper, the 2 and a red 2/3 with menace, and you can exert it to give it +2/+0.
It's a solid card. I like it. It's like 1/2 step behind the premium commons, I believe. Like, you're going to take Unquenchable Thirst, Open Fire, Ambuscade over Kenra Scrapper, but you'll take Scrapper, I think, after this.
I think so, too. I've been really impressed by the Scrapper. I think it's just a very good card. One of the better commons. Agreed, though, the removal and stuff still trumps it. Oh, a rare. We got a chance to talk about this one again. It's Torment of Hailfire. The black X sorcery.
I think we might have touched on Torment of Scarabs more, but anyway, What does Torment of Hailfire do?
So repeat the following process X times, and then it's the thing that you get for all these torments. They can either lose 3 life, sack a non-land permanent, or discard a card.
I think Torment of Hailfire is a playable card. Mm-hmm. I do not think it's better than Steward or Ambuscade or Unquenchable Thirst.
So where do you have it? Like, do you have it better than Kenra Scrapper? How about that? Since it's in this pack.
I think it's about pretty close there. Kenra Scrapper you can play in any deck and it'll be fine. The Torment, I think you want to be an aggressive deck. I don't like it as the finisher in a control deck. I think that I'd rather just have, a Greater Sandworm or River Serpent or something that can actually play defense when you're dying. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's powerful when you cast it for 6 or 7 mana and they're at, 6 life, but that's just asking a lot out of a card. I still think it's a fine card. I think it's a playable in an aggro deck, but I'm not taking it over to premium commons. I guess that's where I have it.
Yeah, I also would not take it over any of these 3 the 2 commons and the uncommon that we've got here, Ambuscade, Steward of Solidarity, and Unquenchable Thirst, but I do find it in that second tier down. Like, I have just seen it end way too many games that the deck that it won with was going to have a hard time ending. Like, one of the kind of sanity checks I do on these things, right, is sometimes you see somebody fire off a card like this, like Torment of Hailfire, and you're like, holy smokes, right? Like, wow, that was insane. Like, they had to discard their hand. They lost 3 of their creatures. Now they're at, 6 life or whatever. It's like, wow, that's really powerful. But, the question I try to ask in those scenarios is, well, what about if I just sub in like a reasonable common for a similar amount of mana? And maybe in this case, the mana thing falls apart a little because it's an X spell. But, let's just say like a 5-drop or something like that. And, if I just picked like a replacement level 5-drop, would that have also won the game, right? Would that have also been a card that would have been really hard, for the defending player to actually beat? With Torment of Hailfire, I find it really hard to pin down because sometimes I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, the unspoken part of this test is because if you were behind, you could have cast your 5-drop and maybe stabilized, where this doesn't do that, like you mentioned. But there's also games where it's like, no, the board was really stalled and things just like this just was inevitability basically for the player because, they just had it in their hand and they just had to just simply count up to enough lands to be able to wipe away all the resources from the opponent. And a 5-drop, even a decent 5-drop creature would not have done that. So it's a tough one, I think, to pin down because sometimes it just really shines. And, it's one of those sneaky cards to figure out when it's not good because you just die with it in your hand usually. And it's, for whatever reason, it's not intuitive to look down at your hand and say, curse you, Torment of Hailfire. You're the reason I lost this game, even though it probably was, like in the scenario where you just needed something extra to finish them off or to stabilize. And, you had a card that, when you were behind didn't do anything. Another litmus test that I like to do on these is what if you mulligan once or twice in a game. Is this the kind of card that you would want to see in your hand or have at any point or whatever? And a card like Torment of Hailfire gets a lot worse when you mulligan because you're likely to be behind and you're less likely to hit your land drops. So, where again, like a 5-drop or a 4-drop card can help save you there. But the highs on Torment are really high. Like, it's very, very powerful. So you're on Steward here or what?
Steward is the card I'd take out of this pack.
I want to take Ambuscade.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I think those two are quite close.
Yeah, I think so too. I think I'd take Ambuscade out of this one. I'm curious what the listeners think. I wonder how many of them take Torment. You think it's just like a straight mistake or what?
I think it is a mistake to take Torment there. I think you should not take Torment over Ambuscade or Unquenchable Thirst or Steward.
Okay. I don't know if that's true or not. What if it's just like the best finisher in the format, Luis? It's not, is it?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think Glorybringer is.
Yeah, I think you might be right. All right, so let's move on to our main topic now. This is a level up topic that I've been kind of poking around at for a little while because I had to do a little field research on this one, but we got there. This is signs you may be doing it wrong. And
when you say field research, what do you mean exactly?
I'm not going to tell you. Names will not be named. I'm not saying anything. But even I've seen these habits and these things from professional players all the way down to local store level players. It is not something that seems to be that just simply goes away when you get better at Magic. These are the type of habits that can actually hold you back a little bit because they reveal a mentality. So, here on LR, right, we try to encourage you to change your mental habits, right, in an effort to improve your win percentage. That's kind of the equation that we go for here because, everybody can be good at Magic. Some people can be really, 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 really good, but everybody can get good, where you're like, I'm a good Magic player. I'm solid. Maybe you're not, Luis's level, but but you can get to be where you're quite good at this game. But you do have to be willing to change and you have to be willing to actually act in a way that makes you better. And, in our case, that can be, just fixing just completely incorrect approaches or ideals. It also can just be like tweaking these cognitive biases that we talk about quite a bit on the show, results oriented thinking and that kind of stuff. It can be, sort of restructuring your outlook so that you don't fall for those traps. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. In this way, though, we're going to be revealing these small habits or actions that can show that you're probably paying attention to the wrong things. They're at least a hint of that. And that's a really important piece, because even though many of the things we're going to talk about here are actually factors in whether you've won or lost a game, which is, of course, something that you will be paying attention to, they all share something in common, which is they're things that you can't actually do anything about, and therefore they should be disregarded. And that's kind of the dividing line that we're going for here, is the idea that the things that you may, the little habits and the little things that you might have going on, they reveal a hint about your mentality. And they also, by the way, use up some bandwidth, either emotional or mental or intelligence or however you want to quantify, some combination of those. If you're sitting there thinking about some of the things that we're going to be talking about here, that means you may not be focusing and thinking about the game that you're actually playing and the decisions that you can make in that game that are actually going to matter for you. And so that's why these are important. And I think that anybody who listens to this list are going to be like, okay, I've done that before, or I do that, or I know somebody who does that, and that kind of thing. So why don't we just get into them, Luis? One of them that came off the top of my head was, if you go play in a Magic tournament and you keep track of how many times you've won or lost the die roll, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You see this all the time, right?
Yeah. When someone's like, I've lost all my die rolls but one today, and it's like, why are you keeping track of that? I can tell you the number of tournaments where at the end of it I know how many die rolls I've won or lost. The answer is 0.
Right. It's the same thing for me. Like, I've never actually even paid attention because all I want to do is see the die roll and then just know the answer to it so that I can start focusing on, well, am I mulliganing on the play or the draw, right? Like, I'm making my strategic decisions, but if you're thinking in terms of like, oh, I lost another die roll, what is going on? Like, your mental space is being consumed by something that's not helpful for you. And of course the basics here are the die roll's completely out of your control, right?
Or it should be.
Hopefully, yeah. You roll the die, you get the result of the roll, and you start focusing on the task at hand. The outcome is completely irrelevant in and of itself. Now, again, I'm not saying that the die roll doesn't matter. Of course it does, right? It's
but
just
keeping track of it does not.
Yeah, and focusing on whether you won it or lost it does nothing.
And before you say this is silly, look, I've talked to enough professional players whose names will not be named who are always very happy to inform me the results of their die rolls.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see it all the time. And again, we're not talking about only shop level players who are more casual or who haven't really built up a tolerance. I mean, we are talking about pro tour level players here, and they still do that. And again, the differentiator here is I'm not saying the die roll doesn't matter. Of course it does. There's many matchups where it's very, very important. But since you can't control it, it sort of betrays the fact, if you're paying so much attention to it, to track it or have some idea of, why me mentality, which is going to, by the way, be pretty pervasive here. That you're not focusing on the right thing, which should be, should I mulligan? Should I not? And most people just don't have that much bandwidth to be able to feel wronged about the die roll and then still just make perfectly clean, logical decisions right after that. And so that's something that if you're one of those people, you should be aware of that. You should say, I don't care. I'm not going to track this.
Basically, all of this stuff is just little things that add up to sap your mental energy and your focus, even if it doesn't sound important. We're not saying that these are all huge life or death errors. We're not saying that you can never do any of them, but we're saying the aggregate here does matter. And if you see yourself exhibiting too much of this behavior, then I think you are costing yourself.
Right. I'm not reading this next one.
You wrote it.
I did not.
So the second sign is that you use a game day playmat.
Oh God, you just can't help yourself.
To be clear, I put in all caps joke with 3 asterisks next to it.
He did. For those of you on the Patreon that get the show notes, you will see it. I typed LOL. I
have nothing against game day playmats. I have a thing against playmats in general in that I don't like carrying one around, but I would never begrudge anyone using one. Obviously, people who respect their cards more than I do are more than welcome to do so.
Yeah.
I
like them. Yeah. All right. So here's another one. And this, by the way, Luis, this is the classic, right? You look at the top card of your library after taking a mulligan.
I do this always.
Yeah. And, this to me is kind of the classic. Are you a look or a no look, right? This is just 2 groups of people. I'm a no look. I just pick up my deck and start shuffling, but it's more out of principle than anything else because, of course, the baseline mentality here is that your mulligan decision is not correct or incorrect based on what you would have drawn, right? That's just not how this works. You make the decision with the information you have in front of you. You make a sound, logical decision that you stand by, and therefore you don't need to know. It's correct or incorrect based on the likelihood that you would draw what you need versus a likelihood that you wouldn't. And, I even ran a little scenario here for this thing. If you have a 1 land opener and you need 2 lands out of the next 2 draws to make your keep work, you're probably going to decide to mulligan because, as all astute players do, you've put this into your hypergeometric calculator and you found out that it's only about 22% to happen. And after you look at the top 2 cards and they were both lands, you get the point, right? Your decision was made with sound logic and it was correct. The fact that you would have gotten there, if you look and there's 2 lands there, it doesn't change that. And, for this this is kind of really the classic, right? Cause a lot of people do look at it. And so there are 2 things though I think that I should say about this, because if you just look because you're curious, but it doesn't change your logic, go for it. It doesn't hurt anything. I mean, it takes a second, but whatever. I don't. again, kind of out of principle, but as long as you don't let it affect your decision-making process, if you just wanted to see, had you got there this time, you can do that. I don't see any upside to it. And I do see some downside for some people where if they look and they go, ugh, I would have done it. And then they feel emotion at that point, you know, even if it's like not really strong. I'm just like, well, are you ever going to feel good? Like, I guess if you look and they're not lands, you're like, okay, I did it. But I mean, you already knew that you made the right decision. That's why you made it, right? And then I'm not buying this at all, Luis. I've heard this one. Some people say they do this for informational or research purposes about mulligans. And I'm just like, no, that is not it. Unless you show me a spreadsheet where you're like carefully tracking it using some sophisticated model that you can punch in over the course of years and it, you know, factors for, no, you're not doing that. Nobody's doing that. If you think you're learning from that, then you have way, way too much faith in your fragile human brain to not be biased towards what you want it to be, and you're better off just not looking. You do look, huh?
Oh, I always look.
So what's your you just curious?
I'm just curious.
I mean, it doesn't bother you, right?
No. I mean, I wouldn't look if it tilted me. I just want to know. I get tilted when people don't look.
No, you don't.
Well, if I'm like watching their match and I just want to find out.
Oh God, you just can't help yourself. I know why you look. I actually know why you look.
Why?
You're just digging for complaint equity.
Well, I don't need to dig for complaint equity. It's just there, like to be just scooped up. It's all over the place.
It's never bad to have a little extra ammo, though. You know. Oh, I mulliganed. ... And I would have got there. I looked. It's like, okay, Luis. All right. So you're the unluckiest.
This is a do as I say, not as I do thing. Look, because like I said, I will admit that I do this. I don't do a lot of the things on this list, but I do that, and that's just because of my insatiable curiosity.
I see. I have curiosity too, but I do not look. And I don't. I really don't. Like, I mean, maybe I have. Like, I think about it, and there's probably been a couple of times I just peeked, but, I play a lot of Magic and I don't look. So, also, this is a weird thing. I just realized this possibly could be part of it. Is that I came up on Magic Online. Like the first booster draft, I ever did was on Magic Online. The other thing I did was
don't you look at your top card on Magic Online when you lose?
You like hit the draw.
Yeah.
I do not. I never do that.
I always do that too.
And I hate it when people do that.
I guess can't say I always do it. I only do it if I like needed a specific card. I'm just curious where it was.
Yeah. Again, I'm sure I've done that too, but I'm not the one that just auto spams the draw card. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a habit.
Well, so again, I will say one thing to keep in mind for the listeners when we're talking about all this stuff. This isn't that any of these things break you. It's that they all sap your bandwidth, and this turns out to be something that doesn't particularly bother me, which is why I do it.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that like some people like taking notes in games and I do not. Right. I think that would actually distract me. I think that would make me play worse. So I choose not to do it, but that might work for some people. Likewise, some of these things might not matter to you and they're fine, but some of them I think do actually hurt you. And especially if you're doing too many of them, because that not only shows that you're the personality and you're at a point in your Magic playing where you're doing way too many of these things, it also probably just adds up because they do matter. So it is good to keep track of all that.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, it to me, it just shows a little bit about what's going on under the scenes there. Right. And also, I think this is very real, by the way, Luis. I think that it feeds a negative mentality. And I mentioned it a second ago. I'll bring it up again here. I call it the why me mentality. And it's the thing that happens when things aren't going your way and you want them to badly. And you kind of have that why me thing going, right? Where you're just like, why do I always have to mulligan to 5 when I finally was going to make the top 8 of this tournament, right? And now here I am mulligan into 5 and, you're looking at the next cards and you're like, yep, I wouldn't have got there anyway. Who cares? Or, and there's more on the list that we're going to go over here. I think that there is a risk to indulging in these little tiny behaviors, because I think that if you do it once and then nothing bad happens to you for the rest of the day, you're probably fine. Maybe even twice, whatever. But if things do start to stack up and you're not mentally ready for that to happen to you, and you start indulging in these little I have to look, or, the next one is along these lines as well, I think you do risk tilting. I just do. I think that at some point you're going to be like, I mulliganed to 5. I looked, I wouldn't have got there anyway. And then you're like, I mulliganed to 6 the next game. And then I looked at my next card too, and I was going to get there. And that bothered me because I wish I would have just kept my hand. I probably would have won the match. And like, you're starting to kind of test the waters a little bit on your tilt. And, you know, at some point you absolutely could find yourself just very frustrated, and you could have fed into that a little bit by doing these things. You do this next one?
I do not. This is keeping track of how many lands versus how many spells you've drawn while you're flooding.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's not entirely true. I don't, after a game, be like, wow, I drew 13 land and 4 spells or whatever. Mm-hmm. I do keep track in specific circumstances. Mm-hmm. Basically, once we
like
get to
strategically, or
so. In general, like when you have like a couple different options to play, and you can just know you're flooded, right? You don't have to count.
Right.
I don't worry about it, and I just play my game. But once it gets down to like basically no cards in hand, and I need to know how many lands are left in my deck, that can be important, because when you're talking about like, do I cycle this like medium impact card, or do I just cast it?
Yeah. And that's a strategic thing. Like you should be doing that. Yeah.
And if you're looking and sometimes you'll get to the end of the game and you're like, wow, my deck is half lands. I actually ran pretty good this game. And you're like, well, cycling here might be a mistake. But sometimes you're like, well, I've got 4 lands out of the last, 14 cards in my deck. So, and then you also at that point are like thinking about what cards are left in your deck, because you know the good cards you haven't drawn, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And this is all good strategic advice.
Yes,
right?
Those are things you should be doing.
Yeah.
What you should not be doing is ending a game and walking over to your friends and being like, well, in game 1, I drew 12 land and 6 spells, and in game 2, I drew 13 land and 5 spells. And it's like, first of all, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
I can guarantee you that.
That's for sure, yeah.
I remember when I think you were there actually, we were doing coverage and someone comes up and like, hey, do you want to hear a bad beat story?
Oh, I was there.
And I said, absolutely
nope,
not.
No,
And that kind of deflated them, but I'm like, I'm glad to hear, I'm glad to talk about Magic, but I don't want to hear a bad beat story.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard and told too many, and I just know they're really not that interesting.
They're really not, especially to the other people. They're interesting to the person telling them sometimes, but
they're also just complaints is the problem.
Yes, and they're focusing on something that you have no control over generally.
And rarely ones that are like all that interesting. Like it is funny if, your opponent on no cards hits 3 cycles in a row and kills you with a Heckma Sentinels exactly, right? Because that's like, wow, that's really unlikely. It's not that funny when you're like, yeah, and then I drew 4 lands in a row. And it's like, okay, well, we've all done that.
Right.
So...
And guess what? That'll happen to you again. Newsflash.
Yeah.
Not the last time. Right.
So basically, I think that there's a fine line between keeping track of the lands in game, what your draws can be, and just counting it up to complaint. And when you're doing the second.
You do.
You know when you are. It's the sort of thing that when you're at a point where you're banking complaint equity instead of actually trying to give yourself the best chance to win the game, you are detracting from that chance to win the game.
Yeah, and that is really the key here to, the crux of what we're talking about. Because, look, like, to be fair, sometimes you're at a Magic tournament and you lose your round. And you did flood out, right? And you go over to your friends and your friend says, how did your round go? And you say, well, I drew too many lands, both in games 1 and 3, and I lost. That to me is just a transformation or a transfer of information, right? That's just what happened. It's when you come up to somebody and you think your story is interesting, or that you expect sympathy, right? Even though everybody goes through this all the time. Like if you play a lot of Magic, it's almost eye rolling. You're just like, yes, I have also been flooded in one match before and I lost, right? So it's not like, there's no expectations there. But if you just simply say these words, that's okay. It's fine to just say, well, that's just what happened. I'm not complaining. It's just I lost because of those reasons. I tend to just pare it down to, I lost. And if you're playing with people who are experienced gamers, especially in like poker and Magic like this, there's a story. They know that there's a story. They know that something bad happened to you that you didn't want to happen, and you don't really need to tell them, right? It's like, I didn't win. That's what happened, right? Like, as it turns out, this time I flooded, or I made a mistake, or, my deck sucked, or my opponent had the nut. There's a billion reasons, but none of them are interesting. So I should just say, I lost. And if they really want to know, I can say I just drew a ton of lands, whatever.
I will say it is your friend's responsibility to listen to your horrible bad beat stories. So feel free to regale them if you absolutely must. But
I agree. I do too. I'll allow my friends to indulge occasionally, but it's just when it's every round, you don't want to hear it, you know?
Yes. And when someone asks me if I want to hear one, well,
no, you do not.
I would like to be honest.
Yes, that's right. This is one that you'll hear along the same veins. You have like a running total in your head about how many games or matches you've won or lost in a row. Somebody comes up and they're maybe playing on Magic Online and, I've lost 5 matches in a row, or I've lost 3 drafts, or I haven't won a draft in forever. And it's like, we know it stings. It really does. Like, it's very real. Like losing, like that's when the tilt starts to really come out, is when it's match after match after match. It really does suck. And I totally sympathize with that. And it's bad. But, it also just is completely irrelevant to the decisions that you're facing in the game now or will be playing next, right? Whatever happened before or will happen after that is not something that you should be thinking about while you're in a tournament or playing. And I know it's really hard to do that. I understand that that this isn't something that you can just get out of your head when you've taken a tough loss or 2 in a row, or when you've been playing on Magic Online for 5 hours and you feel like you haven't won a match. I know that's going to be there. But the truth of the matter is that the more you can put it out of your head and just focus on each decision and each task at hand, the better you're going to do in the end, the less you'll actually experience those losing streaks, because it can snowball. It really can. And, one of the things about tilting is that a lot of people don't recognize how strongly it's affecting their play, and they start to discount the small mistakes that they make and be like, whatever, it's fine. It didn't matter. It's fine. But it's like, no, you're playing badly. Like you're tilting here and this isn't working, and you're giving up little points, and yeah, maybe you didn't get punished this time, but like the snowball is very real when it comes to this. And I think you can hear this all the time. And, frankly, the opposite's true too, right? Like if you think, I'm just crushing it, I'm winning everything. It doesn't actually matter, like, for the next round that you're going to play. Yeah.
A lot of exchanges will go like this, like at a Pro Tour or a Grand Prix. It's like, what's your record? Cool. You need to win 3 more. Or, what's your record? Mm-hmm. You say some number and they're like, oh, that sucks. It looks like you can't top 8. People aren't really worried about how many you won or lost in a row. They aren't really worried whether you're on a lucky streak. Like, those just aren't things. Right. And more importantly is just to figure out what your goals are and just keep those in mind. The other thing is, and we've said this before, you play every match in isolation. Every match is played by itself. Yes. So the fact that you've lost 5 in a row has no bearing on the next match, nor has the fact that you've won 5 in a row. The only difference is, like, if you're in a sealed tournament and you're 8-0, you can probably expect to play against a pretty good sealed deck, but that isn't really you worrying about, your match count on the day as much as just knowing that's a possibility.
Right. And that's such a big thing. What is this next one?
So I added this in because this is a subset of this. It's going to become more relevant. There's more team tournaments this year. It's becoming more of a pushed format. You might see more of it at the local level as in return. Mm-hmm. So in teams, the first team to win 2 out of 3 matches wins the round, and the other match doesn't matter, right? So
right,
you can have a team record of 3-2 when you individually are 5-0. That is very possible. It's also possible to be the other way around. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can be 0-5 and your team can be 5-0. Mm-hmm. The thing that people do wrong sometimes is they talk about, like, hey, what's your record? I'm 6-0, but my team's 4-2. And it's like, no, you're 4-2.
Right. Own it.
And you saying you're 6-0, but your team is 4-2 is actually being a jerk. Like,
right. Totally.
It's just you complaining that your teammates are losing, but that makes no sense. Like, right. I mean, I'd much rather be 2-4 and have my team be 6-0. That is great. Mm-hmm. Getting carried is awesome. But right. Either way, you shouldn't worry about it. If you're getting carried, you shouldn't feel guilty. And if you're winning and your teammates are losing, you should feel like you're losing. So I think that it's very dangerous to try to separate those two things out, and not good for team morale, which is actually important.
Right. Another complaint that you'll hear, especially more at the store level or whatever, is, somebody who can't get over the times they haven't opened, a bomb rare, glory bringer or whatever, or basically just generally complaining about the cards that they open. So like sealed tournament, let's say it's a sealed GP and it's just like, oh, I got another bad pool, right? This is more of that kind of why me mentality, right? It's like that behavior that you start to exhibit when you're like feeling like there's some force out there that's against you, even though that's not actually the case.
When someone says, I always get bad pools.
Yes, that's it.
Like,
exactly.
No,
that
that's
person.
just not how it works.
Right.
Like,
that person. Exactly.
Like you didn't hear me complaining in Return to Ravnica about how many times I opened, Pack Rat or Mizium mortars. So I think it's important to
that
be
is
level-headed here.
less. Yeah, that's not quite what we were going for. Though I was there for that. That was when I first started doing coverage, and yeah, that was pretty insane. I've seen, top players, the Owen Turtenwalds and stuff, go undefeated in day one of a GP, the sealed portion of it, with junk. I've seen people top 8 PTQs locally that were just way better players, and they had junk. And you know what they didn't do is open their pool and go, oh man, no mythics. Oh man, no Glorybringer again. I never get to open the good bombs. See that person over there? She always opens the good cards. I never get them. They never say that. They get their head into the pool and they start saying,
matter.
What do I have? Right. Again, the theme being here that this is you reacting to things that you cannot control, right? And, the sort of key here, right, that underlies all of this is that everyone in our game, everyone that plays this game any reasonable amount, has the same type of issues where they don't open a good sealed pool for a long time. They have their mana betrays them time after time and time. They mulligan over and over again. All of these things happen to everybody. And if you think that you're special, you're wrong. It is exactly the same for everybody over the long term. Yes, over the course of a few months, it might not be. But if you play enough, it will even out. And what that means is the difference in many cases between good players, great players, bad players, good players, elite players like Luis, and great players is how much of that equity that's left over in the middle they can scoop up. And any effort that you're putting towards, bemoaning your bad luck or focusing on the fact that you didn't open another great sealed pool is energy that you're taking away from trying to get the absolute most out of the sealed pool that you have in front of you. And that's kind of what underlies a lot of this, right? Is this idea that like you're focusing your energy. You get to choose where you put that. And I mean like mental energy, like Luis described earlier. You just have only a certain amount of bandwidth to spend. And if you're going to spend some of it doing this type of focusing on the stuff that is out of your control, you are taking it away from the things that actually you can control. And that can be tough. And it's usually spurred on by the fact that you're likely to get a result that you don't want. But unfortunately, the game doesn't care and it doesn't wait. And, of course, like in this case with the Glorybringers or whatever, of course the, pool strength is an important factor, right? Of course it is. We all know that. Everybody knows that if you open a better pool, you have a better chance to win. And of course you open up a bunch of them. But any mental energy you spend complaining or thinking about that or bemoaning that fact is wasted. And you should be spending it directly on your build and on your games. The next one. You focused more on what your opponent drew than what you could do about it. This is one that you hear a lot. And this one actually, Luis, does tend to fade when you get to the higher levels of the game where people complaining about top decks specifically.
Yeah, you don't hear that as much,
No, it tends to go away somewhat. I think that people generally when they're newer, how do I put this? Like, how many times have you heard, Luis, at the lower levels, like at the store level or whatever, somebody say, "Oh, I just needed one more turn."
Yeah, fairly often.
Yeah, and but at a pro level, it's like one more turn. Like that's a lot, right? Like that's all the mana, another card, another attack. Like another turn is like, that's asking a lot, right? In a game of Magic, one extra turn, even if it's like a relatively long game, is a major thing. So, you do start to not hear that as much, but I get it. It can be frustrating, right? You finally got yourself to this position where you thought you were going to be okay. And then they draw their card and they're like, well, kill you. Right. And it's
I think part of it is born out of, like you said, underestimation of how close they were to actually winning the game. Mm-hmm. Because, when you're dissecting matches at, pretty much any level, if it's close enough, people will tend to remark upon it. Like, I was a point short of winning or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you hear that a lot more often, I think, among newer players because they often think they were closer to winning than they actually were. I got them down to 7, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's like I was one attack step away. It's like, well, you kind of weren't. You were only one attack step away because they played in a way to have you end up like that.
Right. Or you played recklessly, to get them to one attack step away, but that also killed you.
Yeah.
That happens too. And I mean, like I said, it does get frustrating, but here's the irony of this one is that this one strikes at the worst possible time because the time when they top deck, let's say it doesn't kill you, but it just gets them out from wherever puts them ahead or whatever. This is the time when you need your most focus, right? Because you might have gone from being like ahead to being, behind. And, that might mean that you need to make a drastically different line of play than you had already had in your head, where before you were going to win in a few turns with the board you had or the cards you had or whatever. And now your opponent's drawn this big spell. And you're sitting there feeling like crap. This sucks. They got so lucky. I was playing so great. And then they drew their good card. And now I'm behind and you're like, ugh, and you're feeling bad for yourself. But this is really where like a lot is dynamically changed on the board as far as the strategy goes, right? I mean, you now may have to take a completely different line of play. And that could be a difficult one to find. And if you're sitting there steaming or focusing on the fact that you got top deck, then you may have a harder time finding it.
Yeah, it's not a good place to be, especially since, like you said, it's very ill-timed.
Right. One of the more basic ones of these is just blaming outside factors time after time. I just came up with a bunch of lists like I got mana screwed, my opponent top decked on me, my pool sucks, I lost the die roll. These are some of the stuff that we talked about. I never drew my removal, right? That's when you hear I had a bad draw. My opponent had the nut draw. Just generally, I get so unlucky. That's a quote from LSV. I missed my third land drop, right? Like we've all heard that one. They always had the answer. Like I never could just stick a threat, whatever, but not. And this is the key because these are some of the ones that we've been talking about already. But if you always say those things, but never some of these, then you could be falling for this trap here, which is I didn't play my best. Like if you never say, I just didn't play my best, I made some mistakes. I made some small mistakes and they ended up costing me. I punted, right? I made a huge mistake. I didn't see it and I lost because of it. Maybe I didn't play around a spell I should have. My opponent outplayed me. Like if you never hear somebody, if you never have ever said, no, my opponent just played better than me and I lost, right? That has to have happened to you, right? I mean, it even happens to you, right?
Oh, for sure.
Right. And I mean, you're one of the best ever to play. So I guarantee you, if you're sitting,
Paulo Vitor Dominarosa.
Yeah, well, yeah, but if you're sitting there, at home listening to this podcast, you're on your way to work or whatever, you're not as good as Luis, and somebody has outplayed you. And if you've never just looked and said, you know what, they outplayed me, right? Here's another. I overcommitted to the board. I played loose because I was winning, or I tilted, right? If all you ever say is from the first list and not from the second, you're probably out of balance, right? You're probably not looking at this game in a more of a balanced, consistent view because it's almost for sure that both things from both of these lists will have happened to you. The more Magic you play, the more you're going to have all of these things happen where somebody might outplay you. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to play your best, but also you're not going to draw your removal. You're going to lose die rolls. Your pool's going to suck. These things are all going to happen. And so if you have like an inner dialogue going about these things or even an outer dialogue to your unlucky friends who have to listen to it, and all you're ever saying is from the first group of things, then you probably have a problem. Like that's bad. That shows that you're not, approaching this in a balanced way.
Well, you know what's great is when something happens that's outside of your control, you can fix that. You can't fix that. Mm-hmm. It's not really useful to dwell in it. When you mess up and you could have done better, that's awesome because that gives you an opportunity.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, well, next round, maybe I'll, pay a little more attention. Maybe I'll think through my plan better. Maybe I won't take such a needless risk. And then you can win. If every single game you think you lose because of luck, it's like, well, it's almost like, why are you playing? You've gotten to the point where that's all that, you're just dependent on luck. And that's not actually accurate. You are in a spot where your decisions do matter and you can make better ones.
Right.
If someone's like, yeah, I played the whole tournament perfectly, like they're just delusional.
Right.
That's just not true.
Right.
And has a perfect tournament ever been played?
Right. Yeah, never. I mean, I would assume no.
I mean, maybe someone went 0-2 drop and played perfectly because they just
They went and got a sandwich or whatever.
rolled a 5 4 times and never got to play a second land.
Yeah, sure.
But when people basically, this is the whole theme of this episode. You kind of have a choice on how you're going to take these things, and if you look inwards for things you can do better rather than looking outwards for things that you got unlucky for, you're just going to do better.
Yeah.
You will have a better attitude and you will find more things you can correct, because I still find plenty of things I can correct. The last match of Magic I played, I punted. I did a team draft against, some 3 good players, and I played against Brock Parker and I punted my match against him. Mm-hmm. And so afterwards I'm like, how could I have done that better?
So you got outplayed by a better player is what you mean then?
I did. Brock's actually fantastic. I think he's one of the most underrated players. He's won multiple Grand Prix. He has a Pro Tour top 8, and he has multiple World Series of Poker bracelets. So
yeah, he's gas. He's also
he's got the I guess jewelry, trophies. I don't know.
He's got all the hardware. Yeah,
hardware. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
but
it's funny you bring that up. I was just looking at the list, and it's exactly what you said. All the stuff from the first list are things that you can't control, and everything on the second list are things you can. Yeah,
I don't think that's a coincidence. You might not have verbalized that as you were writing it, but that is why those lists are separated the way they are.
Right. That is the difference. And again, the point of this episode is to help you see the little things, right? Like if you're flipping tables over, okay, you probably know, okay, I've got a problem, right? I'm not approaching this game correctly. But, if you're doing the peeking at the cards or the letting yourself count up the lands to spells so that you can send a text to your friend that says, man, I just drew 16 lands and 4 spells. This sucks, right? Like, are you letting that slip a little too far? That's one of the questions you have to keep an eye on. We got a couple more here, before we, move on to our takeaways. What about this next one?
This next one is one that I have found myself guilty of before. It's actually specifically for sealed, and it's that you don't bother to really sideboard. Because in constructed, you're always going to sideboard. It's easy. In draft, sure, you're boarding 1 or 2 cards. You're pretty much always going to. You even might get to a point where you don't really look, but that's usually not that big of a deal. Sealed is where often it's right to side in 10 cards or switch colors or to do all these drastic plans.
Yeah.
And when you get tired, when you feel like you've been losing, when you just get dispirited, sometimes you just stop doing that, or at least I do. And I know that's an easy way to lose equity. It's kind of like, when someone always sleeves their deck and then one draft you just see them not bother to sleeve. Oh
yeah, I know that.
That's a sign. That's a sign that they don't believe in their deck and they're not taking things as seriously as they should.
Yeah, so, as we would say, they're off it. They're just like, screw it.
And sealed is a really easy, not sideboarding and sealed is an easy way to lose a bunch of equity when you are off it. Mm-hmm. All right. The last 1/2, I guess it's just one with two statements, is one of the ones I find easiest to counter and the most ridiculous. And that's the shuffler / Magic Online hates me and this never happens in real life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come on, guys.
Shuffler truthers.
These are the people who accuse me of being on the whitelist, right? Like these are the people who think there's like some kinds of shenanigans up. I'm not here to defend Magic Online never being buggy, but I do believe that it does a good job of randomizing your deck.
Yeah, and
unless a Ponder's played, that's a different.
Yeah, that's a bug, right? That's the thing. And and by the way, if you do think the computer gods are out to get you, you're probably focusing on the wrong things when it comes to Magic. But if you do need an argument against it, the funny thing is if you just flip it and you say, well, they would then be helping you too. Right? Like, unless you think it's literally specifically your account. Because if you experience bad things from Magic Online, then your opponent is experiencing good things from Magic Online, like if it's off. So it's zero sum. Like you can't have it only hurt one person and the other person not benefit from it. So you will have been on the other side. So how do you know when it's helping you? Right? Like none of this really makes sense. And I think nobody, that's really thought this through really thinks that it's different. But again, it's another one of those things where like, if you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on whether you should attack or block. And that's wrong. All right. That brings us to our takeaways here. Many of the things we talked about here are very real and they are often the reason you lost a game. There's no denying that, but making them your focal point is the wrong approach. You should be focusing on how to scoop up as much of the remaining win percentage as possible. That's how you excel. That's how you get ahead of your competition. There is a bad side to variance that happens to all people that play this game over the long run, but keeping your focus on the decisions that you can actually affect will greatly improve your win rate and keep you improving on the things that actually matter. That's the key. That's the bottom line, is that Luis summed it up when I gave that list of those statements that you might hear from players or even say yourself, is that some of those are focusing on things that you can't change. Why would you do that? Because you're not happy about it? That's reasonable. It
makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Look, this is honestly one of the reasons Mana Screw exists in Magic. Mm-hmm. It's so people can blame luck instead of themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, it's a thing,
point
right?
In its favor to exist.
Uh-huh.
And we're trying to fight that because we're taking no prisoners here. And I want to follow up something about that too. But we're saying don't try to make yourself feel better. Point the lens at yourself and figure out what you did wrong, what you could do better, how you could improve. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't care or you shouldn't feel or this shouldn't be fun. But it does mean that if know that blaming outside forces is often just so you can feel better. It's not so you can, actually win more matches. And if you want to win more matches, we're trying to give you advice to do that. And ultimately, I think that's what makes us feel better. Knowing we did everything we could do coming out of a match is what makes us feel good.
Yeah, that's a definition of a nuts and bolts spike, which is how we are on this show. That's what we're trying to do. The wins come, but your goal isn't to win. It's the weirdest thing to say. I know that. I know that you come to this podcast to listen to us talk about how to win more, but your goal is actually just not to win. That's not what you're focused on. I know that sounds weird, but your goal is to try to make the best decisions you can.
They mostly come to find out whether a burrito is a sandwich or not.
The real goal, besides that, is to focus on the decisions that you have in hand. That's it. You make the best decisions you can at each interval. And the more you do that, the more you will win. But that's not what your focal point is. Yeah. Also, now I'm hungry.
And like I said, don't think we don't have fun playing this. It's just maybe it's a little different than in some ways. But if you ever watched like either of us stream, we do plenty of goofing off.
Oh yeah.
We're not sitting here calculating our best win lines for every win percentage every single turn. But when I do play in a pro tour, when you do coverage, like your goal is not to like have fun, it's to do your job.
Right. It is. Yes.
And that is, what we're trying to give you help with, because there's plenty of ways to find fun. There's actually not as many ways to find winning.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. And you look, everybody can decide how seriously they want to take the game, but we assume that since you've bothered to come here and hang out with us for a week or for this week, that you are serious about it.
Our shows run long, but a week is pushing it in for us.
All right. Well, this one has run to the end. Did you say you had something you wanted to follow up on, or
no? That was it. It was basically like, be aware that we're focusing on what sounds like a lot of like pretty harsh truths, but know that we care about fun. We care about how you feel about Magic. We don't want you to take the easy out of, of drinking the Kool-Aid and blaming luck when you could, blame yourself. You're a great target for it. But through that, get stronger and be able to fight harder.
Exactly. That is going to do it for the show this week. The show is, of course, brought to you by channelfireball.com. Make sure you check out channelfireball.com/giveaway. And you can check out that summer sale that I talked about, and even get entered to maybe win something for free, which is really cool. If you want to find us on social media, I'm Marshall_LR, easy to find on everything. And Luis is LSV, also easy. If you want
even easier, actually.
Even easier. Yeah, man, I'm jealous. And then if you want to find everything related to the podcast, you can go to lrcast.com and find links to everything that we do, streams that Luis mentioned, writing and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and I got my YouTube channel going, MTG Breakdown. It's here. I've got a bunch of vlogs up there from Japan, another one coming soon, and some more talking type videos and a couple of other things on the horizon for that. So thanks to everybody who popped in to check that out for me. I do appreciate it. I have a link for that on lrcast.com as well. That's going to do it for the show this week. We'll see you next time. Okay, Luis. You ready? It's time for Let's Stump Vargas. All right. And we've got old school edition. I've got a bunch of packs now. People gave us some really good ones, and I've got 2 of them here. This first one.
I do want to admit something to the listeners first.
Oh, what is it?
It's that the main reason we do the sign off is so that Marshall can get old school packs from listeners.
Yeah, right. I give away all the rares. What? I'm not keeping them.
It's not a very good scheme.
Yeah, it's not working well, is it? Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I opened some packs over in Japan and I did some drafts and stuff. And I've actually got a pile of rares that we're going to be giving away. I'm just going to give them away on next week's show because I realize that I'm already kind of ahead of the game here. On that. So next week we're going to have another giveaway, including whatever we find out of these 2 packs. This note comes from, Greg. I don't know how would you say WNCH in English?
WNCH?
Yeah, it's Wunsch. It's German, but.
Wunsch?
Yeah, Wunsch. Okay. Well, I'm just going to say Wunsch. It means wish. So Greg Wish says, stump him. Met him at GP Orlando. And, this was the first set that Greg played. And by the way, our 2 packs are related. I think they are. Yeah. Should I tell you the set?
Nah, just the first card is good.
Oh, look at you. Published by Wizards of the Coast, Renton, Washington. Oh, wow. The pack actually, I learned this from Tap Tap Concede from Loading Ready Run. You know, they do their Magic podcast called Tap Tap Concede. And sometimes if they get an old pack, they'll read. If you look at the outside of the booster, there's like a little bit of text that tells you like some flavor stuff or whatever. It's been many centuries since. Anyway. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. How many cards will it take you to guess what set this is?
1.
Geez, 1? Whalebone Glider.
Okay, so this is... It's definitely Ice Age or Alliances. I think it's Ice Age.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Curse you.
I think it's like a 3-mana 2/1 flyer. It's an artifact.
Let me see. No, that is not what it is. It is a 2-mana artifact, and it says 2 tap target creature with power no greater than 3 gains flying until end of turn. Other effects may later be used to increase that creature's power beyond 3. Thank you, Whalebone Glider.
All right. I got the set right, at least.
You did. I was impressed by that because I've never even heard of that card, and I played that set. Well, I had some cards from it. This next card, boy, they did use up all the good names early, didn't they, Luis? It's called Melting.
Melting?
Yeah. It's just called Melting.
I think this... I know it removes the snow-covered type from snow-covered lands.
That is correct. That's it.
I think it's just a red enchantment.
It is.
2 in a red or something?
It is 3 in a red. Yeah, I'm giving you credit. All these cards, man. All snow-covered lands become non-snow-covered lands of the same type. What a terrible card. Holy crap, that's a lot of text. How about... There's no way you get this. Krovikan Elementalist. This is impossible.
Okay, so it's 2 in a black for a 1/1, I think.
You're very close. I'm giving you credit. It's 2 black for a 1/1.
Okay.
Black.
Yeah.
It has 2 activated abilities.
It has. I think it has a red and a blue activated ability.
You are correct. Oh, he's getting warmer.
But
nice
I don't remember what they do.
Artwork. All right.
It's
2
like,
in a red. Take a stab at it.
It's like deal 2 damage or something like that.
Well, it's not that good. It gives a creature +1/+0 until end of turn.
Okay. And what does 2 in a blue do? +0/+1 and flying?
It's actually a blue. Wow, this is a... Krovikan Elementalist is a little harsh. Target creature you control gains flying until end of turn. At the end of turn, bury that creature.
Cannot be regenerated. All right.
Oh, wow. All right, that's a beating. Stormbind. I think
Ooh,
you know
this is
one.
a classic. 1 red-green enchantment. 2 discard a card at random, deal 2 damage to target creature or player. This is actually one of the best Ice Age cards. And for those who asked what we would take if this is a Crack-A-Pack, I can already tell you Stormbind. It was like one of the best
Stormbind,
cards
you're
in the
just
format.
locking it in. Okay. What about Brown Oaf?
Oh, this is a... It's like
This is a real card.
1 and a green 1/1.
It's just green.
Oh, green for a 1/1. It's like 1 and a green tap counter target activated ability of an artifact.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Wow, I cannot believe you got that one. Oh, here's a card. This is playable in Vintage. Do you know what it is?
Pyroblast?
No, that's a good guess. This is Mystic.
Wait, Mystic Remora?
Yeah.
Okay, this is blue enchantment. You move upkeep 1.
Yep.
Whenever your opponent plays a non-creature spell, you draw a card unless they pay 4.
Yeah, that's it. I've seen this come out of the sideboard in Vintage, right? On
Yeah,
VSL.
I played this card before. It's cool.
Yeah, okay. This is a card that I recognize. It's called Keljoran Dead.
This is black for a 3/1.
Yeah.
When you play it, you have to sacrifice a creature and has black regenerate.
Yep. Wow, that's good. You know these cards came out in 1995, Luis?
Oh, yeah.
How old were you in 1995? 12, 13?
12?
Yeah, that's a long time ago, buddy.
Yeah.
Circle of Protection Green.
1 and a white enchantment. You pay 1 to prevent all damage to you from a green source.
Yeah. Ooh, we actually have a contender for Stormbind. It's Lava Burst.
Lava Burst is good. It's red X sorcery. It deals X damage to a creature or player, and effects that can be used to prevent damage can't be used to prevent this.
Yeah, also redirect, but...
Or redirect.
Is Stormbind better, though?
Stormbind's still better. Basically, all the cards were so bad that turning all your cards into shocks is still really good.
Oh, gotcha. You're just like, you don't care anyway. Let's see. 3, 6... Wow, you've gotten 7 correct and 2 wrong. That's pretty good. Especially after your rocky start with the Whalebone Glider. Keljoran Guard.
4 and a white, 2/4 banding.
I like that guess, though. This is 1 and a white, 1/1. Its activated ability is tap, and then it's literally all the rest of the card is rules text. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn if that creature leaves play. Bury Keljoran Guard if this uses ability only when attack or defense is announced, and only if defending player controls no snow-covered lands. Very clean design, Watsy. Well done. This next card has some iconic Phil Folio artwork. It's called Snowfall.
Snowfall? This is 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment.
The text is so small.
It has cumulative upkeep 1. You can
it's
tap.
blue, but yeah.
Cumulative upkeep blue. You can... islands you control tap for an extra blue mana to pay cumulative upkeep, and islands tap for an extra 2 blue.
You're right. Oh my God. How did you know that? Yeah, I recognize the artwork, but that's absurd.
Yeah, that's kind of bad that I knew that, huh?
That's really bad, yeah. This artwork I recognize too. It's called Ray of Erasure.
Oh, this is blue. It's instant mill target player for 1, draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep.
Yeah, that's actually kind of good card.
It's like a dude getting shot by a ray.
Yeah, and he's like kind of getting X-rayed. Songs of the Damned.
Black sorcery. No, it might be an instant actually.
It's actually not an instant or a sorcery, Luis.
Oh, it's an interrupt.
Correct.
Add a black mana to your mana pool for each creature in your graveyard.
Yes. My God, did you play this set to death?
It came out like basically right when I started playing, fairly soon after I started playing.
Oh, okay. So this is like your young mind was just soaking in all these cards.
This is back when I got to read a lot more about Magic than play. Now I do that too, but that's by choice. Weird.
But did you mean read about playing Magic, or like you would read Scry magazine or something? Or
I could go on like Friday to FNM didn't even exist, but I could go on Friday to the local store. But during the week, I couldn't just go out like I was a kid. I couldn't just leave.
Right.
And I couldn't always have friends over or whatever. So I spent a lot more time reading like anything I could get my hands on about Magic, including the internet. So yes, I spent a lot more time. I wish I could play more now. Of course, I barely ever play Magic, but I get to read about it.
Yeah, or write about it in your case.
Or watch it.
Errantry?
1 in a red enchanted creature gets +3/+0, but has to attack alone.
Yes, that is right. Oh my God. The last one is actually maybe you'll get it. It's Scaled Worm.
Oh, it says 7 and a green for a 7/6.
Yes. My God, you smashed that. 1,
yeah,
2,
I kind of owned
3,
dice,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh yeah, there's 15 cards in these packs. Yes. You got 12 to 3. All right, one more pack. This one, I can't read who it's from. It is from Newell Turner. Thank you, Newell. And guess what? It's closely related.
This will be alliances then.
Mm-hmm. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
False Demise.
This is 2 in a blue. It's an aura. You put it on a creature, and then when the creature dies, you return it to play under your control.
Yep. Browse, Morphil Folio.
Ooh, this card. So this Browse was insanely good, but it looked really bad to a lot of players, including myself, until I actually, like, a better player at my shop explained to me. Since this is 2 blue, it's an enchantment. You can pay 2 blue, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, put one in your hand, and exile the other 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it.
And this is why newer players would look at this, and not even newer players. Back then, just everyone sucked.
Yeah.
The people who were good were so much better than the people who weren't, because almost everyone just had no idea what they were doing. This is why some people just cleaned up back then in tournaments. Mm-hmm. And when you look at Browse and you're like, you lose 4 cards forever, this is horrible.
Right. It's the same mentality about getting milled, right? Where you're like,
exactly.
oh, but I'm losing or whatever.
But the people who are good explained like, no, but you get to look at 5 cards and choose the best one.
Yeah.
Like, this card's insanely powerful, and this card ended up being like a very good card.
What about Gorilla Shaman? Ooh, this
is actually still played. I had to buy some recently for Pauper. This is a red for a 1/1, and it has the activated ability of 1/XX, destroy target non-creature artifact with cost X. Mm-hmm. It was a nickname Mox Monkey because it was very good at killing like Mox Sapphire, Mox Ruby, those things.
Right, you just pay 1 and kill them?
Yeah, so this was a vintage playable for a while. Not anymore, really, but yeah, this card is good.
All right, I'm going to take the under on you getting this one. You're 3 for 3 in alliances, by the way, but this card is just absurd. It's called Gustha's Scepter.
Wow, Gustha's Scepter?
Yeah, I have no
It's a 0-mana artifact. You put a card under it, and you can tap it to return and sack it to return all the cards from it.
Jesus, you just knew that?
I was slow rolling you. Yeah,
wow, yeah, no, I figured that out. All right. He's coming to play. I get you. Keljoran Pride.
This sounds like a bad political movement, but it's...
Oh, it's just bad artwork.
Yeah. This is like 1 and a white.
Yes.
It's like an aura, but I don't know what it does.
Okay, the creature gets...
+1/+2 or something?
Yes, that is right. And then somehow this Keljoran Pride has an activated ability as well.
Is it return Keljoran Pride to its owner's hand?
It's close. It's 2 and a blue somehow. I'm going to read you the text. This is classic. Switch Keljoran Pride from creature it enchants to another creature. Okay. Keljoran Pride's new target must be legal. Because they needed to put that you had to be able to target something on the old cards. Treat Keljoran Pride as though it were just cast on the new target.
All right.
I'm not giving you that one. Aether Glider.
This is like, I want to say 2 and a white for a 1/1 banding flyer.
No, this is an artifact creature.
Oh, this is the card I might have been thinking of. 3 mana, 2/1 flyer.
Anything else?
No, I don't remember the rest.
All right, then. I was going to give it to you if you got the rest. The rest is cannot be assigned to block.
Oh,
can't block.
Let's see.
Varchild's Crusader. I don't think I've ever seen this card.
Yeah, I don't know this one.
Oh, this is a great one. So it's 3 and a red for a 3/2, and it has an activated ability 0. Cannot be blocked except by walls this turn, and then you bury it at the end of turn.
All right.
That's gas. What about Keljoran Escort? Super hint, riding a dog.
Yeah, I don't remember this one either. I'm worse with alliances than Ice Age for sure.
I don't know any of these cards. It's weird. I've recognized most of the Ice Age cards, but these ones are really screwed. I have no idea. This is 2 white for a 2/3 with banding.
With what?
Banding.
Oh, this is my pick from the pack right now for sure. Banding was broken.
Banding is really good, right?
So what banding does is when you attack, you could band, like when you attack with a banding creature, you can attack with another creature in a band with it. And when your opponent blocks, you get to choose how damage is distributed. So you'd attack with this 2/3 plus a 3/3 in a band. Mm-hmm. Your opponent will block with like a 4/4 because that's bigger than your 2 creatures. Mm-hmm. You would then choose to assign 2 damage to each of your creatures and they'd both survive. It's kind of like you were the blocker.
Oh, that's insane.
And on blocking, you could band with as many creatures as you wanted. I guess because they don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So if you have a bander back to block, your opponent should never attack you because now they attack with a 4/4 and you block with 3 creatures and just go assign 1, 1, 2.
That's insane.
Yeah.
All right. So we like Keljoran Escort. Noted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also kind of glad banding's gone. Swamp Mosquito.
This is 1 and a black for I think a 0/1 flying.
Yeah, that's right.
And when it hits them, they get a poison counter.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And it even reminds them that if they get 10 or more, they lose.
Yeah.
That's got to be one of the early
the poison first showed up in the dark, I think.
Yeah. This card's called, I've seen this artwork. It's called Yavimaya Ancients.
3 green for a 2/7. You can pay a green to give it +1/-2 until.
Yeah, that's it.
If you want to do some math.
Yeah. I like it. What is this one? Latnam's Legacy.
This is 1 in a blue. You shuffle a card instant, I think. You shuffle a card from your hand back into your deck, and at the beginning of next upkeep, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that's it. Last card, Fevered Strength.
2 in a black instant, give a creature +2/+0, draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep.
Man, yeah, you snapped that one off too. Wow, you did really well here, I have to say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And these packs, for some reason, came with 12 cards, so you only got 4 wrong. I am impressed. Nice work, buddy. You crushed it. We did not stump Vargas, I don't think, this time. Maybe a couple of cards.
I think I can claim this as a
victory.
As a decent amount of
I mean, we know when we stumped you because you quit. You just tilt off and say, I'm done.